reading. Let's read about a place where an airplane flies to. See, what you're doing there is getting an associative link back to his favorite thing, airplanes. Now, my mind works just like Google for images. You know, you type in keywords, you get all these pictures. I'm kind of amazed at how the search engine works. Works exactly like my mind. And being a visual thinker really helped me in my work with equipment because I could test run equipment in my mind. I thought everybody could test run equipment in their mind. In fact, all the cattle over at Greeley plant and the cattle over at the Fort Morgan plant go through equipment that I designed. I think that's pretty good for somebody who thought was mentally retarded. And the thing that was really interesting is that the doctor that helped me in the beginning was a neurologist, and Dr. Bronson Crothers really was kind of ahead of her time to even think about looking at epilepsy. You know, this was back in 1949, and then the people that wanted to put me in an institution, that happened a little bit later. The movie had to just sort of stick that composite character in there because it just, you know, it's a 2-hour movie. And the main thing we wanted to be showing was teenage years and getting my business started. There's the dip vat that they built for the movie. This is the geek side of me. Loved the fact all my projects were done right. I actually did build that gate you could open from the car. The optical illusion room, I did that project. Built the squeeze machine. Everything was made off original drawings and photos. And being a geek, that really, really turned me on. And I get concerned. You take some of these smart kind of geeky kids kind of getting a handicap mentality. They aren't made to do enough stuff. I mean, I talked to a mom the other day, and her 12-year-old who's fully verbal doesn't know how to order food at McDonald's. Now, that's just ridiculous because these things were being done for him. And there are the drawings. Now, one of the things that I had to learn is I had to sell my work, not myself. Everybody thought it was really weird. But when I whipped out these drawings and I showed them, then I got a little bit of respect. And I like to show that job to people because I like to fantasize that 2,000 years from now it's going to get dug up and they're going to wonder what it's for. And this is a neat picture I got from a young autistic kid to show how he puts pictures into categories. You see, how do you form a concept when I just got all these specific pictures floating around in my mind? I form a concept by putting pictures into categories. It's bottom-up thinking, it's not top-down. Everything you teach the kid has to be by specific example. Okay, what's good table manners? Eating with your mouth open is bad table manners. Twirling your fork in the air is bad table manners. You know, cutting your meat with a knife and fork is good table manners. Eating with your hands is bad table manners. You see, that's specific example. How do you teach a concept like being rude? Or how do you teach a concept like not running across the street? You got to teach them that that applies at home, at school, at the Joneses' house, at the Smith's house, at a whole lot of different places. It's bottom-up thinking, it's not top-down. That's a very important thing. Everything is taught by specific example, and specific examples get put in categories. Now, when I wrote my book, Thinking in Pictures, in the mid-90s, I realized my thinking was different when I asked people about church steeples. I was shocked to find out that most people see this generalized, generic image. That's coming out of the association cortex. We now know that in neuroscience. I just see specific ones, and they sort of just come up like this, just like it was shown in the movie. That's how they come up. Well, getting just about near the end of my slides, I used to joke around that I had a huge internet connection into my head for graphics. This is what's called tensor imaging. It measures great big huge trunk lines in the brain, and mine is twice as big as the controls. And there's one there. Boy, I got a big one there. You know, big, huge, high-speed internet connection. I had another brain scan recently at the University of Utah, and they found my graphics card, and it's really big. Okay, I'm going to end on this slide. And this is a really important slide. I'm going to end here. And I've kind of found over the years there's kind of 3 different kinds of minds. And I talked in the TED conference about the different kinds of minds. I'm a photorealistic thinker. I think in pictures. I couldn't do algebra. And one of the mistakes made in my math education is I didn't get jumped to geometry and trig. So how did you get through college when I couldn't do algebra? Well, I got to thank the new math craze in the 60s. This saved me. Because college math in 67, when I took math, was finite math. Statistics, probability, and matrices. If it had been algebra, I would have flunked that. I think one of the things that needs to change is you should be able to substitute geometry or trig for algebra. And I'm finding a lot of people where algebra is not the prerequisite. And then you have another kind of thinker, the pattern thinker. Think of more abstract, organic chemistry, mathematical things, chess, origami. And these are your music and math minds, your engineers. They often have trouble in reading. You see, there you get uneven skills. And then you have a verbal fact mind. This is the guy that knows every statistics about hockey or whatever, his favorite subject is, average abilities in math. And then you have some people with a lot of visual problems where they are an auditory thinker. They're going to learn better through auditory. I just want to give you a glimpse into the mind of the pattern thinker. And this praying mantis is made out of a single sheet of folded paper. No scotch tape, no cutting. And what you see there in the back, that's the folding pattern. That's not my mind, but I just wanted to show that to you. And we've got to figure out how to help kids excel. I mean, one of the problems you got in autism is it's such a big spectrum. At one end of the spectrum, you got Mark Zuckerman, and I can mention him by name. I read the book and I saw the movie. And if it shows him accurately, he's as Asperger as they could be. And you've got half of Silicon Valley out there. And at the other end of the spectrum, you've got people that are going to, be a lot more handicapped. And this is the problem. Autism's a true continuum of traits. That's what the research shows. The genetics is totally embedded. You're not going to find the gene to get rid of autism. That's not going to happen. You're talking about tiny code variations inside of genes. And a little bit of the trait, you get a smart person who's not that social. Because after all, to do all the geek stuff, you got to give up some of the social circuits and vice versa. It's sort of like, when does geek become Asperger's? There's no black and white dividing line. And diagnosis is not precise anyway because they're going to get rid of the Asperger's thing. And I have to say, I'm trained as a biologist, biological scientist, and I do have problems with people sitting in meeting rooms, discussing what the guidelines should be. Because, you don't do that for tuberculosis or for, what kind of flu virus you have or whatever. So I'm going to end there and just open it up for questions. I'd like to back up to that slide because I think that's a really, really important slide because, I'm a visual thinker, but I've had students that were good at everything I was bad at. And different kinds of minds can work together. And we need to help people to do that. We also need to be thinking about jobs. Visual thinkers like me, good at things like industrial design, art, graphics, photography, pattern thinkers, your mathematicians, word thinkers, journalists. We need to start when kids are in middle school and think, what are they going to do when they grow up? They're not learning any work skills. When I was 15 years old, I took care of 9 horses. When I was 13, Mother had me hand sewing dresses for a seamstress. When I was in college, I did a whole lot of internships. We're not learning enough, they're not learning enough work skills. I'm seeing smart kids graduating from college that can't get jobs. They have 0 work skills. We have got to correct that. Okay, now we'll do questions. And if nobody has any question, I'm going to pick somebody and then I'll repeat the question. Okay, right there, and I'll repeat the question. Well, in the general population, you can have these same kind of thinkers, but what tends to happen in autism is you tend to get a more unevenness of skill. Like in what they call a neurotypical person, you may have these different kinds of minds, but the skills are more even. What tends to happen in autism is to be, especially on the higher end of the spectrum, is to be very good at one thing and really horrible at something else. Like I absolutely cannot multitask. I got to say, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to spend 2 hours working on writing this abstract or whatever, the thing is I have to do. Okay, this hour right now I'm going to spend just doing phone calls. I don't want to be interrupted by the phone and the email all the time. I like to have, blocks of time where I can get things done. But, yeah, the normal population is going to have these minds, but what I find in autism is it tends to be more extreme. So that kid that's good at, you might have a 4th grader that needs to be taking 8th grade math, otherwise he's going to be bored to death, but needs some special ed in reading. The skills tend to be uneven. And that's shown up in a ton of research, going all the way back to research done in the 70s. Okay, right there.